What's up, Tyson?
Hello, hello.
How you doing?
Good.
Long time no see.
I know.
Okay.
By the way, your haircut looks pretty good.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So, I was thinking about talking about some lead gen today and just doing an Ask Mitch Anything call. And then Whitney Druce or Jeff Brailio will be on the call next week to talk about title and that process.
Awesome. Awesome.
So they're trying
Yeah,
to figure.
Whitney is so good, and I appreciate her so much. I would love to have her on because she's just building her new business and she needs some more clients. And so she may not even like market her own business, but her just providing all that value and saying, "Hey, I'm a title agent. I've done all these things." That will naturally make people want to go to her.
Exactly. No, and it's funny. I called her on the way home from the merchants meeting that we were at together, and I was like, "Hey, I'd love for you to be on. Explain what Ask Mitch Anything was. Love for you to be on it." And she's like, "Well, I've never done anything like that before. I've never presented to anybody before." She's like, "I don't know, but I've always wanted to get into it." I'm like, "Well, if you don't feel comfortable," she's like, "I don't know. Well, Jeff might do it, but I kind of want to, but I'm not sure." Just kind of waffling back and forth on it. And I said, "Well, um, why don't you take a night and think on it and let me know? And if you don't want to do it, then I'll hit Jeff up, and I'm sure he'd love to do it." So we'll see. It'll either be Jeff or Whitney.
Yeah, I'm sure that Whitney is just feeling uncomfortable with the idea only because she's not familiar. She hasn't done it before.
It's outside of her comfort.
Um, yeah, with a little bit of like coaching from you. If you just say, "Hey, Whitney," I'll like if you tell her exactly what you want her to talk about, tell her what elements would make it engaging for everybody and would probably get her more business, like an outline kind of thing.
Yep, I agree.
Not like every point to talk about, but just an outline, the general outline. If you hit on these types of things, people will love it and they'll love you and you'll have more business, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Maybe like, I mean, the format that we generally see that I like and everyone likes is they get on and they tell their story, like who they are, how they got into this, what they enjoy doing, and then kind of talk about what their job is like, how title works, what to
Yep.
look out for, red flags, um, how to do creative transactions, how to maximize your relationship with the title company.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yep. No, I agree with you. I think tomorrow I'm gonna have a conversation with her in the morning and kind of coach her through it and try to encourage her to do it, because I think it'd be good for her to get into that arena as well, right? Public speaking, dude, that's where money is made. Do you ever listen to any JT Fox's stuff?
Never heard of him or
He
her.
has he has a seminar called Speak Your Way to Millions.
Okay.
He's actually one of so I started out in Renatus as that same guy that you talked about today, right? I was like, I am not doing your stupid MLM, right? Like for
Well,
two
I
years.
didn't think MLM. I never thought MLM. I just kind of like heard about this marketing thing. And I'm like, what? Sell the education? Why would I want to do that?
Yeah. And that was me though. I was like, I'm not doing your stupid freaking MLM. And I would tell John O'Neill and Michael Huggins that, like, I'm not doing your stupid MLM. And I and then I heard you Speak Your Way to Millions, and I started looking at people like Grant Cardone and Robert Kiyosaki. I'm like, dude, I'm killing it in real estate. Why couldn't I do something like this, right? And guess I could.
Yeah.
So
And Whitney is so passionate about what she does. She loves this. If she is able to just relax and be herself while she's presenting, I think that enthusiasm would be the most memorable thing that everybody gets from that presentation.
agreed. No, absolutely. Hey, did you happen to send out the text messages today?
I did.
Awesome. Okay, so we should start seeing people trickle in about 7 minutes.
Yeah, there's nobody asking to get in yet.
Okay. Would you make me a host as well?
I will.
So actually, so I decided a couple days ago that I was going to be doing lead gen, but then I saw this on the way home as I was getting off the freeway on Hillfield.
We buy houses.
Yeah. So I'm going to talk a lot about bandit signs and the success that I had. I built my coaching company off of bandit signs, right?
Nice.
Like Renatus, right? When I started Renatus, for the first 2 years, it was bandit signs.
Did
So
you do
I'm going to
anywhere
talk
where it's like real estate investor seeks apprentice?
2,500 of them a month.
Is that what you said?
Yep. That was my sign.
Because before finding Renatus, I saw those signs. I don't see them very often anymore, maybe because I'm not looking.
Yeah,
But
Renatus banned them because of me. They got too many police officers calling them, being like, "Your people are doing this." Yeah, Renatus banned them because of me. You're welcome.
Yeah, that's funny. I I saw a lot of those signs in the South Jordan Riverton area before I found Renatus, and I never considered calling it because usually it says like 25K something, making lots of money per month. And in general, in my life, if something's too good to be true, it is.
It really
So I
is.
had no desire to ever call that number.
Yeah, they said 10K a month. Real estate investor seeking trainee, 10K a month. Phone number.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that's the one.
Those are me. A pallet a month, 2,500 signs a month. And I would
Wow.
get my 8 IMAs at the time, and we'd write them on Mondays, Money Mondays, and we'd go put them out. We'd go put them out on Tuesdays, and we put them out on Fridays.
Wow.
Building for the Thursday event.
Actually, that's funny that I know the person who made all that happen.
Yeah. Massive action, right? It's just massive action. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what propelled my coaching business at the beginning. That's what propelled my Renatus, my Renatus sales business at the beginning was those bandit signs.
Yeah.
And I went in 2016, I went from 8 IMAs to like 400 IMAs.
Wow.
Yeah.
I was talking to somebody else at the re-recording of the negotiations class, I think 2 weeks ago.
How was that, by the way?
What?
How was that, by the way?
It was so good. So amazing. What?
I said, I'm jealous. That's awesome.
Why didn't you go?
I should have. I kind of feel like a pariah a little bit among Renatus people. I don't know what's your sense on how people feel about me over there?
Okay, let me tell you. A lot of them know that I'm very closely associated with you.
Okay.
A lot of them know that I'm your business partner, assistant, or both of those capacities. And so many of them, especially the big players like Nate Lambert and John O'Neill and Ryan Black and Tim Vreeland, like those people and many more are asking me all the time, how's Mitch doing? I miss that guy. They all like you. They'd love to see you again. They'd love to talk to you again. If you showed up at live recordings, people would be like, what's up, man? You would be well received. I'm very positive about that.
Good. I know Bob would be fine with it because we're still friends. So
yeah, and you're still an education holder. There's no reason that I can see why you wouldn't be welcome to one of those.
Yeah, I left in good standing. So
yeah, so if you feel like you wouldn't be welcome, stop it. Just go.
All right. Okay, good enough. Let me know next time one comes up.
Okay,
we'll go together.
Yeah, perfect. And you live so close.
Right.
It'd be pretty easy for you to jet over for at least a couple of hours.
Yeah. I've got too much ADD to stay the whole time. I have never been able to sit through an entire recording. I always have to get up and go somewhere and do something and go outside and walk around for a minute. And, but I'd love to come for a couple of hours, maybe over the lunch break too.
I have this hyper focus problem. It's not a problem sometimes, but sometimes
it's so curse.
Yeah. And it's not like that all the time, but if I'm interested, I get hyper focused, and sometimes it's only a problem if I have a previous plan or engagement that I had committed to, and I get so focused on what I'm learning or doing, I forget to go to that thing.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yep.
I missed a date in college once because I was studying chemistry. I was so focused on it. And 2 hours late, I'm like, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I was studying and I lost track of time. Who does that?
Yeah, right.
Who does that?
I bet she wasn't very happy with it.
I chose chemistry over you. Sorry.
It's awesome. Only because I wanted us to have great chemistry. That's why.
Okay, now the co-host Lynn H is in the waiting room. I'm letting her in.
Okay.
Hello, hello. Welcome.
Lynn H. Who's that? Come off of Ronald. What's
Ronald?
up, Ronald?
Oh, I guess is
That's
Lynn
right.
H.
I remember that. He told us last week.
It's someone else's Zoom account?
I can't remember. Charlotte's here. Letting Charlotte in. How you doing, Ronald?
I'm good, Mitch. How you doing?
So good. Just happy to be here, my friend. Another day, another dollar, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'm hanging off the side of buildings out here in San Francisco.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Is that what you
Hopefully
do
in
for
a good
work,
way.
Ronald?
In a good
Yeah,
way.
yeah, that's what I do. I'm a glazer, so and I work on the swing stage a lot because I'm comfortable there. So
Cool. That's got to be a lot of fun.
it is.
Little adrenaline.
Actually,
Glazer just sounds like I don't know. It sounds cool. I want to be a glazer.
it is fun, but like it's hard on your body. Glass is heavy, let me tell you.
Sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's what that is. Maybe I don't want to be a glazer.
Yeah, I put the windows in. I worked on Salesforce Tower out here. I've worked on like the two tallest buildings in San Francisco.
That's cool.
Cool.
That's awesome.
I have some really great photos.
I was just out there a couple weeks ago over our anniversary. Maylee and I went out. We got married in Catalina Island, and we wanted to do Catalina for every anniversary, but it was closed down for the COVID stuff. So we went to San Francisco instead and hung out in all the surrounding areas. And San Francisco was shut down a little bit, but man, what's the name of that little town on the other side of the Golden Gate Bridge? We spent a lot of time.
Sausalito.
Sausalito. Yeah, we spent a lot of time in Sausalito. We went out to Napa Valley. So fun. We had so much fun out there. I love the Bay Area. Gorgeous place. Expensive.
Yes, very
it's like the most expensive place in the world when it comes to real estate, but so much fun. Beautiful place.
Yeah. I lived in the Bay Area actually. Ronald, I lived there for about 6 months working. Luckily for me, my apartment was paid for by the company I was working for. Yeah. So I lived there for free. And some of my customers.
Best of both worlds.
What?
Best of both worlds.
Oh, yeah. Some of my customers had moved there from New York, like Manhattan, New York. And I asked them, okay, I heard New York is the most expensive place in the country. What do you think? And they said, oh, by far, this is the most expensive place. It's way more, not way more, it's more expensive than New York. It's ridiculous. I was working in a neighborhood actually that I saw this advertisement that a house in that neighborhood was recently sold for about $1.2 million. Now, this is before I knew anything about real estate, but I asked my customer, $1.2 million, is that a good price for this neighborhood? And these houses, mind you, were not new. They were not big, were nice, and they were close together. And $1.2 million. So my customer was like, yeah, that's a great price for this neighborhood. That's incredible, actually. And I'm like, I don't want to live here. Why do you live here?
That's a fixer-upper in San Francisco.
Yeah, right.
$1.2 million.
Yeah, and that's so ridiculous. And that means to me that someone who makes that much money in Utah would be quite wealthy to afford a house like that. But in the Bay Area, that seems like a lower middle class person, right?
You know,
Yeah.
I've got a real estate investing student. You probably know him, Tyson. Tony Scotty.
I
Remember
do.
Tony Scotty?
I
Yeah.
do.
So he lives out in Hawaii. He has a $1 million house in Hawaii, which is like a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom, right, on Oahu. And he has a HELOC on it because he's doing speed banking. And the dude buys houses out in Ohio.
Yes.
Which, you could pick them up for 60 grand for a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom. He buys houses out in Ohio cash using his HELOC, and then seller finances them and puts them on a 30-year amortized note and collects all that amortized interest and just uses speed banking to pay it down over and over again.
That's amazing.
He's taken, I call that empire building, right? When you take more than one strategy that I teach you and you go and you kind of turn it into one master strategy and you go kind of make a business plan out of it. That's empire building. In fact, I'm working on a class right now about empire building. I'm trying to beef it up a little bit so we can get to that 4 or 5 hour mark, but it's got some good stuff and you guys will all get a chance to get that when it comes through. So, well,
I've always actually wondered how people invest in real estate when they live in Orange County or the Bay Area, just places that is so ridiculous. Like, how can you afford that?
Yeah.
How do you make it work, right?
The cheaper parts of the country. And you know what? It's all relative anyway, because like Ronald says, 1.2 million is a fixer upper. So buy it for 1.2 million, put 200 grand into it, sell it for 2 million, right?
Yeah, probably.
So there's just it's just different numbers, and that's one of the things. I mean, I think that brings up a really good teaching point, even before we get started on the call here, is that the numbers scare people, right? People look at numbers and they're like, oh, geez, that is 2 commas. Sometimes it gets to a point where people are like, I don't even know how to say that number out loud. Like, it's scary, right? But really, this whole game, the numbers don't matter. It's the same strategies, whether you're dealing with $1 or $1 million or $1 billion. It's the same game. Maylee and I, over the last year or so, maybe a little less than a year, have been working on shifting everything we're doing to multifamily. So we're slowly, I'm not saying we're going to get out of single family fix and flips and rentals because we have no plan to end that, but we're trying to shift our focus to multifamily. Right now we've got a 13-plex under contract. As soon as that one closes, we'll go out and look for the next one. But really, it's just numbers. And the further out we can move that decimal point, the bigger the return is, right? When we're talking about, when we're talking about $2.1 million on this project that I'm working on as an all-in versus a lot of times it's $210,000, right? But my payout, it's 10 times more money I have to raise. But you know what? It's the same conversation with people. It literally is the same conversation with people. And even though it's 10 times more money that I have to raise, it's going to be 10 times the return for the same amount of work. So, we let the numbers get in the way sometimes. We let the size of the number get in the way sometimes. And you know what? A good deal is a good deal is a good deal. It doesn't matter where it is. People always ask me, where's the best place in the country to invest? Or a lot of times, when you guys first were introduced to me and we had a conversation, a lot of you I had personal conversations with on the phone before you became students. And some of the conversations were, where I live, it's not a good place to invest. Not true. There is a strategy and there are homes that these strategies will just work wonders on. And that's in every part of the country, in every market climate. You just have to be educated enough and have enough tools in your tool belt to be able to go make that happen. So, it's just don't ever let the numbers get in the way. Don't ever let that scare you, even though it's going to be tempting to let it, right? So, well, we got a good little group of people here, a little smaller week than usual. I think we've got looks like 10 participants on. Eugene, welcome. Ronald, what's up?
Thank you.
We got Charlotte here. Darlene, Evan is on. Welcome, Evan. Love to see you on the call, my friend. Hannah's on. Jen's on. Kathy's on. Hope I didn't miss any. Darlene's on. Hope I didn't miss anybody, but welcome all. we're gonna be talking about some awesome stuff. We don't have a guest speaker this week. I'm trying to do guest speakers twice a month. Is that kind of a good feel for everybody? And then, I know we don't get a lot of question and answer when we have speakers on. Mostly it's them just gabbing. But I think every other week, to the extent of twice a month, we'll have guest speakers, and then that gives us a chance to kind of in between we'll regroup, and I'm sure as you've had a chance to ruminate over the course of a week on the content from the previous week, we can open up to questions in this format. I've got a couple of things I want to talk to you guys about today to fill some content, but and kind of a takeaway that I think will benefit everybody. But do we have any questions or any comments from the last couple of weeks? Last week, we had Scott Brown on, who talked about transactional funding. I know he's already working with Sherry, right? So, he's already working with one of our students to go get a deal done, which is awesome. I love that. Love to see success happening in the group. But I would love to hear from you guys before I get into, my soapbox and what I got going on. I'd love to hear from you guys. What are the challenges you're facing? What are the questions that you're taking away? I mean, with the value that we've had over the last few weeks with the guest speakers, are there any questions that have come up from that? I want to give you guys a few minutes to be able to voice any of those things. So go ahead and come off mute. If you have a question, feel free to just jump in here. There's only 10 of us, so we shouldn't do too much talking over each other.
I do have a question for the group. When was the last time we did a fix and flip tour, and which house was it? I can't remember because we have a couple new flips. Yeah,
it was about a month ago. We did 2700 East.
Okay, so we haven't showed them Ridgedale and we haven't showed them Harrisville yet, right?
Right.
No.
And Almond is almost done, so I think Almond deserves another walkthrough.
Sure does.
J Street sold. We did J Street, but that's gone. And Ridgedale and Harrisville. So maybe on our off weeks, Tyson, if we want to do some walkthroughs, that'd be awesome.
Well, and Cedar Hills is being listed probably, I think today, and it's staged, so that would be a good one too, because we showed them Cedar Hills when it was not done yet.
Right.
And then we can show how much staging makes it.
Let's get it on the docket.
I did have a quick question. Obviously, I've never been to where you guys live, and but it looks like it's a pretty large area stretching from north to south. So my question is, what is the most northern tip and the miles then down to the most southern tip that you sort of operate within?
Well, I guess it depends on what strategy you're talking about. So rentals, I have owned rentals, bought and sold, and still have rentals nationwide.
Okay.
I've got rentals right now from here to Tennessee.
Okay.
But fix and flips.
So fix and flips, okay, yeah.
Fix and flips, I will only do the area that's referred to as the Wasatch Front, which is Ogden down to Provo. So the Wasatch Front is kind of the main, in northern Utah, it's kind of the Rocky Mountain range there.
Okay.
And they refer to it's the Wasatch Mountains as that range. And so they refer to it as the Wasatch Front. It's probably, what would you say, Tyson, about 200 miles?
From Salt Lake City to the northern end of Ogden, it's about 50 miles.
From Provo, the south tip of Provo to southern Utah County to North Weaver County.
It's about 80 miles of of vertical space.
Linear miles.
And then it goes out like the interstate here in Utah follows the mountains, which run north to south, and the interstate on the east side of the mountains. And so we focus on the valley that's on the east side of the mountains. If you cross the mountains into Park City, which I'm sure you've all heard of Park City, Utah, we don't invest there. It's a beast.
I haven't done a ton in Park City. It's a little volatile because it's a tourist market. I'm sure many of you have heard of Park City, Utah. It's where the Sundance Film Festival is held. There's, a lot of movie stars. Eddie Van Halen lived there before he passed. But I have gone the other direction. I have gone out west towards the Great Salt Lake and done some stuff in Tooele, but basically that I-15, Tyson made it sound like we got one little podunk freeway here, but the I-15 corridor is basically from Ogden to Provo. Is where we go.
So to simplify that, Eugene, I would say that it's about an 80-mile vertical distance and maybe a 15-mile east to west distance.
Okay, and maybe putting it differently, so it's like a 40-mile radius from sort of your home base. Is that sort of fair to say? Yeah, because I'm just trying to get a sense of, what is a comfortable range to, how far do I start to look out, as opposed to really just looking my immediate, 15-minute drive or 20-minute drive from me. But that's helpful. Thank you.
Here in the city, to put it even more simple, yes, it's about a 40 to 50-mile radius for us.
Yeah.
Okay. Great. No, that's very helpful.
And what's your reasoning for limiting yourself to that specific area?
That's a good question, Charlotte. And I actually, it's not anything but personal. So Eugene, you don't have to go off of what just because I use a 40-mile radius, you can invest anywhere in the country. And the reason that will work is because everything's systematized. If generating leads, we can do that in our pajamas, on our couch with a computer, right? We can generate leads in any county in the country. Calling those leads telephone, right? Have a conversation with them. Are you interested in selling? Yes or no, right? So the quick analysis, that's numbers. We plug the numbers into our spreadsheet. We pull comps. We can pull comps in Ohio as easily as we can in California. So, and then the long analysis step, we're not doing that anyway. So even if you're buying your next door neighbor's house, you're not going to go do the home inspection. You're going to hire an inspector, right? That's what you learn in the class. So that translates across the country. And reading an inspection report is fairly simple. Getting contractors in there is simple. Now, with that said, I think your first few that you're managing on your own, it's smart to keep them close to home. You want to keep them 5, 10 minutes, 20 minutes away so that you can drive there and check it out and see what's going on. And, there's still a learning curve involved in doing your first couple of deals. That's going to be part of the learning process. So you're going to want a little tighter leash on those. But once you get to the point where it's comfortable, and only you know that, right? It may be 3 deals for you. It may be 10 deals for you. But once you get to the point where you're like, hey, this is just what I do, right? It's easy. I know it like the back of my hand. Then you want to do stuff in Florida or Maine or Washington or California. That's your call. So I wouldn't. I'm just because that's what I do. I do that because it's comfortable. I do that because Maylee is an agent. Oh, I'm sorry, my dog's barking in the background. I do that because Maylee's an agent and she's only an agent in Utah, and we can triple dip. Right, which is just another way we make money, which I encourage all of you to do. So
another reason for us is also our contractor who we trust and use on every single deal to do the flipping. He doesn't want to travel a very big distance. So if we did invest somewhere else further away, we'd need to find a new contractor.
Another contractor, yeah.
Okay. And it would just be more work to vet a new contractor and in order to go and check on him. Sometimes the difference between being screwed over by a contractor or not, or him doing a good job or a sub good job, is us going and checking once a week.
See, I like that. Hi guys, it's Jason jumping in.
Hi, Jason.
Hi, Jason.
Hey, sorry to be the voice there that comes out. What's that?
I said, how's LeBron?
Oh, yeah. Well, his organization's doing real good now that he's the man, the myth, the legend. But yeah, he's doing good. He's doing good. I don't get to hang out with him or anything. I see him from a long distance. But it's so cool because tonight, that's why I'm a little bit late, because I was actually trying to interview a contractor, and I knew this conversation, it keeps coming up, and we're fighting so hard to find the guy, and I'm realizing how difficult it really is, and how you do like what you guys have with the one fella. I can't think of his name, but
Steve?
It's special. What is his name?
Steve?
Steve. Oh, I'm sorry. Gosh, how rude.
Mitch and I use a contractor named Steve, and he works on all of our real estate flips. He's our guy, and basically when we get a fix and flip, we just we purchase it and we're like, here, Steve, take our flip, and then he handles the rest.
Well, I would love to paint a scenario for you guys and get your opinion. We have come across this really young and hungry fella. I mean, he's passionate about this stuff, and we know his dad. His dad's like super straight arrow. I've done media projects with him, and I actually, on a media project, ran into his dad. So there's many years of like lineage there where I know these people inside and out. And his son is super good with his hands, went to school for actually to be a general contractor. I don't think that it's a community college, so it's not like he's got like degrees and stuff in it, but I think more certifications and, programs like that. But he's hungry, and I've explained to him that I'm kind of a part of this real estate family and blah, blah, blah. And we kind of have system and procedures in place. And is it something that he would want to be a part of? Not something to consider down the road, but I pitched it, and I want to make sure that I'm kind of doing it the right way. And I need maybe a little bit of guidance here, but the way that I pitched it to him was we would love to see, his work, right? And he's got a lot of work that he's done, but that if things were to work out well, we'd like to start out maybe hourly. And then as things progress along, that we would love to see a relationship down the road that could be more of a partnership than just hourly based work. Isn't that kind of how it went with Steve a little bit?
So yes and no. Couple of things here. I think a probationary period, yes, brilliant.
Okay.
Hourly, no.
No.
Okay.
Because what ends up happening is he's going to be on the clock and he's smoking a cigarette and eating a donut while he's kicking stuff around trying to get it in place and charging you for it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that's what hourly
based.
does. Yeah, it's not great. There's actually a module, Jason, that I want you to review, and anybody else who has any questions around what Jason just asked. It's the fix and flip class, module number 7.
I haven't gotten to that one yet. Okay.
Okay. So I want you to review that before you solidify anything with your contractor. But basically, and I'm gonna give you kind of the nuts and bolts of it here. I switched screens to look up the class. There we are. Okay, I can see you again. Because of that, the hourly just it doesn't work. I've tried it. Right. Okay. And I've made that mistake for you. You don't have to waste the money that I wasted. Okay. What you want to do, here's the best way I've found to do it. Get from your contractor what's called a scope of work. Take him to the property, walk him through, show him everything you want down to the very most basic thing, the cabinet pulls, right? The handles on the cabinets, down to the very most basic thing. Have him line item that. And you can tell him, hey, you can go as broad as you want, or you can go as detailed as you want in the line items. But just so you know, this is how I'm going to pay you. I'm going to be buying the materials. You're going to go to Home Depot. You're going to get everything you want. You're going to get in the checkout lane at the pro desk, and they're going to call me and do a payment over the phone, and I will answer your call, and I will make that payment as long as you text me ahead of time and let me know that that's what you're doing so that I'm available for it. So I pay for the materials. He does not need money up front to pay for the materials, right? He may need $1,000 or $2,000 to get rolling, fine. But then everything after that is paid based on the line items being complete to the tune of once a week. Ooh. So on Fridays, I will meet you here at the property and we'll walk through and you'll show me what line items have been complete labor-wise. You don't have to worry about the materials. I've already paid for those. But labor-wise, you will show me what's been completed, and I will pay you for those line items that you completed. So the more detailed you go, the more I'm going to be paying you on a weekly basis. The less detailed you go, it's going to be a minute before you get a check. I'm going to leave that up to you.
That's so good.
and what that does, what that does, and you don't get away from it. If you guys remember that fix and flip we walked through, where I had it for like 8 months, and you guys are like, geez, why did you have this one so long? Contractors, right? Update on that one, a little fun update. So we got down to the last $2,000 that I owed this guy, and I was hanging on to it. I'm like, finish the punch list. He was done with the property, just a punch list. I'm like, finish the punch list. And the guy was like, I am not going back to that property until I get some money. I need money. I need to finish this up. I agree. I'll go finish it up if you pay me. So being the big, kind-hearted guy that I am, I paid him. I paid him his last $2,000. And instead of going and fixing the stuff that I needed to fix, he pooped in all my tubs.
Tyler.
Well, sure.
He pooped in all your tubs?
He pooped in the tubs. Yeah. Yeah. So.
Wow. Do you happen, Mitch, do you happen to could you share one of those lists with us, like the list that you use to mark off the line items?
Yeah. I'd have to find one. So let me do that offline, and I'd be happy to share with you guys. In
Sure.
fact, why don't I put that on the docket? Tyson, remind me. Let's put that on the docket to share next week,
Okay.
and then I'll find one, and we can pull that out and talk about it for sure. And the nice thing is it's not something that I prepare. That's why I don't have it like just handy. It's not something that I prepare. It's something that they prepare. It's like an estimate, right? But it's line itemed out, and they tell me exactly what each line item's worth. And I usually tell them, look, if anything, I'm be adding stuff, not taking stuff away. I may take something away here and there, but I'm going to make up for it with stuff that I add, because there's always stuff that I add. But every time you complete a line item labor-wise, I'll have the materials there for you, no problem. Every time you finish a line item labor-wise, I will pay you for it on a weekly basis. So if he finishes 20 line items, I'm paying him for 20 things, right?
Wow.
And I just make sure I have the money in the account to do it.
I gotta ask, why in the world would this knucklehead poop in all your tubs? Like, what was his beef?
He
Scarcity.
Yeah, and he was unhappy with Steve, and just done.
Oh, his accountability.
Because
Steve was the accountability. Oh.
It's Steve's an acquired taste for sure, but at the end of the day, I mean, I had given this guy 3 properties, like J Street. We have a 4-plex in Provo that I had him working on, and this Cedar Hills job, just rapid fire, showing him what we can do, right? And he shot the relationship. So,
Yeah.
Wow.
I've got to say that's a first too. I've never had anybody poop in my tubs before, so that was a Dan's coming into this call thinking, what the heck are you guys talking about?
Pooping in tubs, Dan.
But
Hey, Dan.
How's it going?
Hey, what's up, Dan? We're just talking
Pooping
about
in tubs.
pooping in
What?
tubs.
You're talking about what?
I had a contractor, so just object lesson. I had a contractor that was unhappy with the accountability that we were holding him to, and we were talking about how to pay contractors and how to do the line items and pay them for the line items as they're done. Pay for the materials yourself, right? Pay for the labor as it's done, line item by line item on a weekly basis. And I had this guy get down to the last $2,000. He wouldn't go back to the property unless I gave him that last $2,000 to finish the punch list. And instead of doing the punch list, he pooped in my tubs. So we had to deal with that over the weekend. And it was my stagers that caught it. So my wonderful stagers that you guys have seen their work on one of the walkthroughs we did at J Street, they cleaned it up for me. They're amazing people. Relationships, right?
Relationships, yeah.
So,
Hey, Mitch.
Definitely paid him extra.
I have one more comment to make to you, Jason, about paying contractors. It's a tip that I've heard from a different investor, different experienced investor, like Mitch. This investor told me that they have an incentive that they make clear to their contractor. They say, okay, here's your deadline. You said you're going to get it done by this day. I will give you $3,000 extra, or you can pick a number if you finish it early. And by early, that's defined as a week or more early.
That's good. Okay.
Yeah. Bonus structures always help. Positive reinforcement always works better than negative reinforcement. right? But
Yeah.
sometimes it just gets down to, dude, I don't know what else to offer you. Like, I offer you you and your wife a trip to Hawaii, and you're still late, right? So I don't know what else to offer you. Now it's time for some negative reinforcement, But positive reinforcement always works better, because then you don't get your tubs pooped in.
Right.
Well, I will also say that I think that's exactly right what Tyson recommended. And, I'm coming late into the conversation, of course. There wasn't anything I had going on. I was doing some other things and just was a space cadet tonight.
Good
But
one, man.
anyway, with that, you want to have those, quote, negative reinforcements on the back end. Consider, like Tyson saying, the positive reinforcements on the front end. But also included in there is that if they do get it done early, like Tyson suggested, it's going to give you time to do your walkthrough and say, okay, this is up to speed and this is up to speed with our standards, just so they don't rush through it and say, okay, we're done, I get the bonus, right?
Yep.
Obviously.
Yeah, you
I learned
gotta do it.
something.
Absolutely.
I learned something last week from a fix and flip house tour that I was helping run, and not with Mitch. It was with a different friend, but he said that his first contractor he had to fire because his first contractor overpromised. And that's something I learned that we need to be watching out for. Some contractors will be like, oh yeah, 8 weeks. I'll have it done in 8 weeks, but they actually can't do it in 8 weeks. So he fired that contractor and then hired his next contractor who said, it's going to be done in about 18 weeks. And he's like, 10 weeks? No, 18 weeks. 10. No, it's 18. So contractors, they can set proper expectations and be real with how long it will take. Something to look forward to.
And that's
what a difference.
That's really, so we talked about Steve for a second, right? Steve, I mentioned, is an acquired taste, right? He's a little rough around the edges, but Steve has never once done anything dishonest in the Jesus, probably been 5 years that I've been working, 6 years that I've been working with Steve now. He's never once done anything that even came close to being dishonest. He's always reasonably within budget. Occasionally goes a little bit over, but it's always less than 10%, right? He's very consistent with his timelines. COVID's been tough because people aren't as readily available as they used to be. So timelines have drug out a little bit, but not terrible considering. Now, I got to listen to this guy bitch at me every day about all this stuff that's going on. And he's, he's gruff and he says it like he thinks it. And that's, but that's a small price to pay, right? I look at it as relationship capital. I'll be his counselor if I know that I don't have to be the one there managing subcontractors every day, right? So half-hour a day investment for me, for someone who will go manage my teams for 8 hours, you got it, dude.
Yep.
I'll also say, and maybe this was part of the conversation before I got here, maybe Jason brought it up, I don't know, but I'll many times tell our students that the two people that you put on your team that are the ones that are the most tricky to deal with are a investor-minded buyer's agent, real estate agent, and your contractor, right? And we just, it takes time to filter through those two and get someone that really is in tune with what our plan is, what our agenda is for how we work things with our business, and someone that's going to go along with it and be good with it. And it's a hard road to get the right match to put on our team, right?
Yeah.
And that's why you only have one Steve, right? Like you don't have
one Steve.
Yeah, because this is tough. This is not easy.
Yeah. I about a year and a half ago, I gave him half of my construction company. Will you marry me, Steve? Right? That's basically what it was. But you know what? You're going to listen. You're gonna fail with the relationship game. You're gonna fall on your face, and by failure, I mean the traditional. You're gonna get an outcome that's not what you're expecting. That's okay. That's okay. You're gonna have learning experiences. You're gonna have flips that you made a third of what you thought you were gonna make because that stupid contractor, right? But that's a learning experience. and that's going to make you better as you go. We all, I mean, I know I harp on this, it seems like almost every call, but I think this is that analysis paralysis, that fear of all the things that can go wrong. They will. Just count on it, right? Your education is going to put you light years ahead, but you're still going to make mistakes, and you're still going to have to learn from those mistakes, and that's okay. That's okay, because you don't have a boss looking over your shoulder. You don't have, it's just you. You're the investor. You're the lead guy or the lead gal, and this is this is a process that we got to put on our big boy pants for. Right. And once we have on our big boy pants, we got to be willing to get dirty a little bit, because you're going to. And that's just a matter of fact. Wouldn't you agree with that, Dan?
Absolutely. And I also want to follow up my comment before, realizing that many of our students on the call are real estate agents and are contractors. And we understand that's the way things are. And you have to learn to say, okay, I need to look at this from an investment point of view. And it is tricky because, like Tyson was saying earlier, you can have a contractor in our example or a real estate agent saying, oh, I can do this and this and this for you. But reality sets in and they're just overwhelmed with how much work they have going on, and they can't perform to those levels. And, it ultimately works out to be the right compromise, and they adjust for you and you adjust for them, and ultimately see if it's going to be a good relationship to work with.
Yeah. And the knowledge, this is why knowledge is a more valuable currency. Go back to the 5 currencies, right? Time, knowledge, relationships, credit, money, in that order. That's the order. Knowledge is more valuable than relationships for a reason, right? Sometimes the relationships fail you. But the knowledge thing, real estate is so forgiving. It really is, as long as you have a broad enough knowledge to know what to do if something happens. A contractor rips you off and you end up over budget. And Jason, you might be in a deal. This has happened to me. You might be in a deal where that puts you above, above your break-even line, or below your break-even line, or however you want to look at it. And you're thinking, oh no, like we're going to lose money. I'm going to have to talk to investors. No. We set this up from the very beginning so that if there were any problems, which we all know, and we made it very clear to our equity partners, that this is something that could happen and may happen, right? Very small chance of it, but it might happen. And in the cases when it does, we've already had that conversation. It makes it so much easier to talk to equity partners and say, dude, this is what happened, and this is what we're going to do to fix it. We're going to, because we were smart and we did the debt equity blend, we're going to either bring in a credit partner, or I'm going to do it myself, and we're going to refinance this thing. We're going to turn it into a rental. We'll probably hold on to it for 1 year to 2 years. We'll cash flow. I'll pay you the cash, your equity percentage of the cash flow, and then we'll cash out, right? In fact, I've got Evan Anderson's on the call. Evan, can you come off mute, dude? We're gonna use a little real life example here. Evan and I are in the deal in Salt Lake. This is what I'm talking about real estate being forgiven. Evan, can you hear me, my man?
Yep. How's it going?
How are you, friend?
Doing good.
How's Vegas?
It's still pretty hot.
I'm jealous. It's supposed to freeze up here this weekend, so I'm heading down to St. George. So maybe we can meet halfway and hang out, grab lunch.
Yeah, that'd be fun. That'd be great.
But Evan and his dad and I are in on a deal in Salt Lake. You guys have seen it. It's the Almond Avenue property. That one, again, freaking contractors, right? Granted, COVID didn't help at all. We didn't expect that. But even, they really shouldn't have even hit COVID based on when we bought this thing. So, this thing stretched out. We were planning on making like 80 grand on this thing. And, obviously with the more time, we've had our holding costs, have just built up and built up. But real estate's forgiving. The market has been doing awesome here. And this house is on probably the most prime lot in downtown Salt Lake City. It overlooks the LDS Temple Square. It's right next to their conference center. It has a beautiful view. The way it's just perched on the foothills, you can see the entire valley all the way out to the Great Salt Lake. Gorgeous place. And when we first bought this house, our ARV was 650. Our ARV now is 800. So, you know, we're looking at this. We originally planned on making 80. We're probably going to make somewhere between 90 and 100, even though we went way past our expected timeline, and those holding costs have risen. So, perfect example of how real estate can be forgiving, right? I mean, we can't control everything. We know that. Evan and I talk on a regular basis. Evan's dad and I talk on a regular basis, but it's still going to be a winner for us, right? So it's just a matter, I think, where a lot of you are. And some, Evan, thanks for letting me pick on you, my man.
No problem.
I think where a lot of you are, you know, most people on this call, I think, are still anxious to get in that first deal. You know, that tends to be kind of the audience that this call attracts. The biggest advice I can give you is go get dirty. Just go get dirty, right? I saw a movie the other day. What movie was it? Where the kid was kind of a bookworm, and the mom was like begging him, please just go get in trouble or something. I think it was The Sandlot. That's what it was. The Sandlot. Where Smalls, he's sitting on his bed, like doing his math homework or something, and his mom comes in like, please go break something. Like go be a kid, please. Like, I'm saying the same thing to you guys. Go be investors, please. Just go break something. Go get dirty. Go get in trouble somewhere. Just go do it, right? Because that's the only way that you're gonna get your feet wet and really be able to understand what this game is all about. Because we can talk about it, but until we actually experience it, it doesn't really click, right? But once you do that first one, then the whole world changes. Whether the first one's a winner or a loser or somewhere in between, the whole world changes at that point, because you start to realize, oh my gosh, like this is so much easier than I thought it was. That was the first thought that occurred to me when I finished my first deal. I was like, this was 100 times easier than I had built it up in my mind, because there's so many little facts and so many little things to remember. And you want to have that all perfect and squared away in your head before you go execute something. But you know what? It comes back to you. It comes back to you in the moment. You only need to know one fact at a time, right? It comes back to you when the contractor is saying, hey, can we do hourly? Or you're going to remember this conversation. You're going to be like, nope, right? We're going to do it this way. And it'll come back to you in that moment. And honestly, from start to finish, I was just scratching my head at the end. I'm like, I made how much on this first deal? And that was it. That was all I had to do. I was still working my website job, right? And that's what I spent most of my time doing. You guys will experience that. You just got to go get dirty.
And I was trying to find the picking contractors one. You said it was number 7. It's under that fast fix and flip formula is the title. So anybody else looking for it as well, I was trying to dig and find it, but it's under that fast fix and flip.
Yes. And I believe the fix and flip class is on page 2, right?
Yes, it sure is.
Yep. So it's on page 2, the fast fix and flip formula, and it's module 7, picking contractors. So that's going to be a really good review. How long is that module? Let's see.
Looks like 9 minutes for the picking contractors.
About 10 minutes. No big. Some good little nuggets in there. I think that's a good thing to review, Jason, if that's what you're dealing with right now.
The other thing I was going to say in regards to what you just said, Mitch, is that the other great thing about this program is that when you do get to that point and all of a sudden the contractor says, hey, could we do it hourly? You're thinking, let me check on that. I'll think about it, right? Well, if it doesn't come to your mind clearly that, oh yeah, what did it say in that video? You know, you can go to the video. 2, you can reach out to myself or Mitch to say, hey, I got a contractor that's saying we should do hourly. And we know if we responded to Mitch, he's going to say, do you remember in this video I said, and you're going to be reminded and say, oh yeah, of course, that's right. It's all here for me. I've got my support team to help me so I can get through this and have the shortcuts that Mitch is helping me with, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're always here for you guys.
Mitch, what would you say like is your how comfortable are you with leveraging yourself to the extreme? Like it sounds like, you know, when we go over the speed banking, that there's a little bit of room that you have for emergencies, but
Yeah.
overall you're pretty dang leveraged. And I know that you have multiple companies and you're pretty much, you know, you have almost like a kind of a vertical mindset with regards to placing yourself in profit positions along, you know, in those businesses. But
Right.
when you're talking about finding money and going out and you know, there's a lot of ways to find money, but how comfortable are you with leveraging those things? That you have such a great system and you're pretty good at
Yeah.
it. So you're pretty certain when you go into a deal on the return or the length of time. But can you just talk about like your comfort level with regards to leverage?
Can you be a little bit more specific? Are you talking about like my personal credit, or are you talking about
Yeah, like everything. Like, so if you're talking about leveraging your everything that you own, basically leveraging your assets. So leveraging your home and a HELOC, and then you're turning around and you're spending that. So you're putting that at risk, right? So then you can actually leverage your investment account with a brokerage firm. You can leverage that.
I feel like every time you ask a question, I could do like an entire class on the answer.
Okay.
I love it. So yeah, I could do hours on this. So a couple of things. In fact, I'm gonna make a couple bullet points here because I don't want to forget the things I was talking about. So first, I want to talk about good debt versus bad debt, okay? Because there's a difference there, and we're going to talk about that. Then we're going to talk about protecting personal assets, because the short answer, and then you're going to get the long answer. The short answer is I'll leverage myself as far as I can for good debt, right? Now, bad debt, it's got to be strategic, right? I wanted my Corvette, so I went and I leveraged it, right? You all know the story of how I got that. I had a property, pay the payments off of the cash flow, but it was in my name, so it has to be strategic. I'm very, very careful when it comes to bad debt. I'm very, very still careful, but there's no limit for me on good debt, because I know the good debt is only going to catch me up that much further in the future when I decide, okay, I'm done. You're either in growth mode or you're in debt pay down mode, right? We talked about that in speed banking. I'm in growth mode, and I will be until I decide otherwise. That may be, you know, I'm 34 right now, almost 35. That may be when I'm 40. That may be when I'm 45. Honestly, if I have the same attitude I have now, a decade or 2 decades from now, I may never stop. I mean, you know, my wife may literally have to like pry me off of a Repsy and pull the pen out of my dead cold hands to bury me. Like that's, you know, I may work until I die. But bad debt, I'm very scrupulous on. Good debt, there's not really a limit. The limit is I'll keep asking until they stop giving it to me, right? So we just keep going. Now, obviously being smart with it, right? We're not going to go buy stupid deals, because then that's bad debt. That's not good debt. So good debt infers a good deal. I think Robert Kiyosaki has one of the greatest definitions on good debt versus bad debt. I quote him in Mindset to Millionaire. And that is that good debt is debt that will pay you on a monthly basis. It covers its own debt service, and it pays you on a monthly basis. So using that formula, that's my formula for when I buy a rental. Yeah, I'm going to leverage. I'm going to probably bring in equity partners on most of the rentals I do. Some of them I do myself, but I can grow faster if I'm leveraging, right? I'm going to bring in debt lenders. And as long as I still make money after everything's covered, expenses are covered, that's good debt. And I'll get as much of that as I possibly can. Bad debt is things that don't pay you on a monthly basis. Now, fix and flips fall into the good debt side, only because the way that I structure my fix and flips is I don't owe any payments until I get paid. And I talk about that in the other people's money, raising other people's money class. You know, the most ideal situation is the interest accrues, but it's not due until you sell the property, right? And obviously there's a term to that, 6 months, a year, whatever the case might be. You may get extensions, you may not, right? But until I sell that property, nobody's getting paid, right? Until I get paid. So again, good debt, right? As long as I'm making more
than
than
interject there, that ties back into us talking to Scott Brown last week, and you know, I brought up that question to him of, hey, so you know, and it's something for all the students involved is, you know, we need to ask our lender when we're getting, you know, pre-approved from them. Okay, what is the process? Do I have to pay you a monthly, or does it all get accrued, as Mitch says, and when we sell the property and get paid, we now can pay off all that accrued debt? So be mindful that every lender can do things different ways, and the same lender, you might do one loan with them, and then the next loan, they switch it up and say, no, you got to make monthly payments. And you're like, what? You know, that's not how it was last time. You know, so you always want to ask, okay, let's get very clear on when you get paid. And so you're going to add up your numbers properly.
Yeah. And as time goes on, I mean, you're gonna go, again, relationships, right? You're gonna go through a couple before you find the person that you really love to work with, and then you're gonna work with them for the next 10 years. Matt Strong, who we had on the call a couple weeks ago, great example of that. One of the first contacts I made in the real estate investing world, and I mean, we're still doing deals to this day. Charlotte, both Harrisville and Ridgedale, so Matt's in on. So you know, he's and the relationship is to a point, and I've for years have been sending students his way, and his business has grown because of me, and my business has grown because of him. But I think we're to the point where I could call Matt and I could say, hey, I need 500 grand tomorrow and I need you to deliver it to the bottom of the ocean, and he'd do it, right? And those are the kind of relationships that you want. So you know, it's just it's finding that right person. But back to your you know, to the second part of your question is protecting myself. Now, yeah, millions and millions of dollars. I'm leveraged to the tune of millions and millions of dollars in good debt. That's not debt that keeps me up at night. I mean, if you know, if you were like, geez, I got $7 million in debt, most of you wouldn't sleep a wink, right? I sleep just fine on that debt. There are, you know, occasionally there's like a hiccup here or there on bad debt, you know, maybe a few years back that kept me up and that I was concerned about. But the good debt I'm not worried about because, again, real estate's flexible, right? Just go out and grow until it's time to stop growing and then retire. But protecting yourself, yeah, you absolutely want to protect yourself. I mean, geez, you want to talk about exposure. I don't even know how many equity partners right now, past equity partners, most of them are happy. Some of them, I mean, the other day we saw that J Street. Yeah. Laura. Yeah. She made money. She made it was like a 23% annualized rate of return that she made on that property. But because I went to 8 months instead of 6 months, like I told her, she thought I was doing something shady, even after she got the money back. So, you know, she might be pissed off at me. You know, it may decide to sue me one day. I have no idea. So you want to protect yourself no matter what. So there are countless strategies on this. We cover a lot of them in the tax and legal, the tax basics class, just to name a few, just to give you guys some ideas to get the brain juices pumping. One way to protect your assets is a strategy called equity stripping. When you're in growth mode, this is a great way to protect your assets, right? Because real estate's leverageable. So, you know, let's say, you know, I'm going to pick on Eugene for a second. So Eugene and I go and do a deal and I totally botch it because I have zero experience, and Eugene gets all upset and he's going to sue me, right? Well, I guess I shouldn't say I have no experience because that doesn't work in this example, but he goes to, you know, hires a lawyer. The lawyer starts doing some discovery on the lawsuit, and they realize Mitch has, you know, 4 dozen properties across the country that we could go after. right? And Eugene's getting all excited, like, yeah, all right, here we go, let's sue Mitch, right? And then they do a little bit more digging and they realize that I've stripped all of the equity, which means I've leveraged as close to 100% on each and every one of those properties as I possibly can. And I go and buy more real estate with it, right? So equity strip, buy more real estate, strip the equity out of
How
that.
do you do that, Mitch? How do you like, I get it, because you have a business that's built up, and so they can look at your past performance, they can look at your income, but how do you go and on your rental
private money and have your title private money and have your title person put a lien on the property for you.
So it's a private money. It's a private hard money lender.
Yep. And so when you put that lien on the property, it goes against the value of the property, right? So equity strip as much as you possibly can. Now I'm not saying this is a universal strategy. I'm just saying it's one way to protect your assets, because then as Eugene's looking at these 48 properties and he's all excited, and now he's looking at them, he's like, every single one of these is mortgaged to 100%. So Eugene, yeah, go ahead and sue me. You want 48 mortgages to pay?
Don't think
right,
so.
You're gonna drop the lawsuit.
So when
right?
yeah.
So when you're doing that, and you have these, what's the, so a HELOC you can get for next to, the same amount that you could get for a regular loan. So when you're doing a hard money, where you're just borrowing it off of a property that you own, what kind of interest are you paying on that money?
Yeah, I was going to ask the same.
It's going to be different based on what you do, because there's not a blanket answer. Like I'm not, it's not I go to KeyBank every time and I get this product every single time. Some of them have HELOCs on them. Some of them have business lines of credit. Some of them are in portfolios for collateralized business lines of credit where it's 4 or 5 of them at once that have been leveraged. Some of them are private money. Some of them are, and so the interest rates are going to vary. But here's the thing, at the end of the day, the cash flow has to work. Right. So you have to balance that along with your equity stripping strategy. Equity stripping is going to be something, as long as you're not, going to Vegas with the money. Sorry, Evan. But it's like you're not going to Vegas with the money or wasting it on stupid stuff like boats or 4-wheelers or something like that. You want to be taking that money and obviously rolling it into more real estate and continue to use that strategy if that's one that you're using. But the cash flow has to work. So it's not necessarily this, hey, push a button, it's done. It's some work on each and every property to actually strip the equity out of it and roll it into another one. But it's worth it. It's worth it because if and when Eugene decides to sue you, all he's going to find is debt, and no one's going to sue you for debt. The next thing, insurance policies. I have an umbrella policy of $5 million. Follows me around everywhere I go, right? Doesn't matter if I'm in a car or in a building. If I break something, as long as it's worth less than $5 million, I'm good, right? So I've got an insurance policy. A lot of times in lawsuits like that, during their discovery, they'll see, he's equity stripped, but he's got a $5 million insurance policy. Let's see if we can't get $1 million out of it, right? And they'll sue and want insurance money, and then the insurance company pays out, and my premium goes up by $5 a month, right? Big whoop! It wasn't my $1 million. Insurance is the investor's best friend. There's for certain, if you've got a license, a real estate license, or an emissions insurance, you can pretty much insure anything. Some of the more crazy stuff that you want to insure, you got to go to kind of some crazy places to find people who will insure it, but pretty much anything's insurable these days. Beyond that, trust. Cody Backus, I use him for a lot of estate planning and business planning type things. I use, I've talked to you guys about Steve Harward. He sets up most of my entities, but Cody will help me with kind of the high level planning that we do. He sits on my board of directors. Every quarter we have a board meeting and Cody's there. But he recently about 2 years ago, introduced me to what's called a Utah Asset Protection Trust. A lot of red states, I don't think there's a political correlation to it other than the way that the governments tend to think, but a lot of the red states have what are called asset protection trusts. Some of the blue states do, I think, but most of the states that don't have asset protection trusts are more like tenant favoring states, tend to be blue states. That wasn't a political statement. I hope nobody took offense to that. But it's an asset protection trust. Usually there is a grace period. So in Utah, it's 6 months. I can put anything I want into that trust. And then I don't own it anymore. The trust owns it. The trust is its own entity. It's a living, breathing thing. It's durable, which means it will outlive me, right? If I die, it keeps going. There's beneficiaries in place. There's executors in place. Cody is obviously one of those executors and trustees. If I get sued, or if one of my companies gets sued, and Eugene's trying to come after my house, right? Geez, Eugene, you're just sue happy. No, but if he's trying to come after my house, I don't own it. I did something wrong. Sure, I did, whatever I did that made Eugene mad. I did something wrong. He's coming after me. He wants my house. I don't own it. The Asset Protection Trust owns it. Now, there is a 6-month grace period where for the first 6 months, if there's a lawsuit or if there's a judgment, those assets that I move in there for 6 months are still in a limited way
Risk.
at risk. Yes, thank you. But after that 6 months,
You're good to go.
yeah, and one of the keys is your trust just doesn't do business with anybody outside of you. You're not going to sue yourself. So your trust only does business with you. And Eugene can't sue my trust just because. Well, he could try, but a judge is going to throw it out because there's no case, right? So we're safe that way. So there, in a nutshell, I think, are a few really good ideas as far as protecting yourself as you start to leverage. Now, creditors, we're talking the same thing. Creditors, right? Credit card companies, you didn't pay your credit cards and now they're coming after you and they're suing you. And well, fine, sue me. What do I own? My trust owns my businesses. My trust owns my house. My businesses own my properties. What do you want? I got nothing, right? So not saying do that. If you do that maliciously, that's I think that's a felony. but
Sure.
You do it to protect yourself preemptively, right? You don't do it with negative intentions. You do it with positive intentions of just, hey, I want to make sure my family's safe if crap hits the fan.
So when you're talking about hard money lenders that are not traditional banks have oversight. They have people who come in and look at their loans. They have people who say, well, that they have to justify how they structure certain things. Do hard money lenders that are not banks have that same oversight?
It depends on the state. I apologize. If you see my video turning on and off, sometimes I live in a kind of smaller town called Layton. It's a military town. Internet service is not great here. So if you see my video go off, it's because I'm trying to get the bandwidth to catch up. So you guys aren't lagging behind. So to answer your question, it depends on the state. There are some states like Scott told us, he doesn't lend in Utah. He doesn't lend in, what was the other one, Dan? I think Arizona? No, he does lend in Arizona. You're on mute. Dan, you're on mute. Well,
I'm sorry. Yeah, it was Nevada, and I think is the other one Oregon. He said.
He doesn't lend in Utah, Nevada, or Oregon, and the reason is because of what you're talking about, Charlotte. He's subject to the same rules that mortgage companies are subject to, and a lot of hard money lenders could go get licensed. Like Scott could go get mortgage license if he wants to, but then he's subject to all the bureaucratic BS that, honestly, in my opinion, I mean, you guys don't want to hear my political opinions, but we're so overinflated with bureaucracies and regulation, and it's suffocating to people who actually want to go out and create jobs and create housing for people. So he doesn't want to have to deal with that. I don't blame him. I don't blame him at all. In fact, I have recently, about a year ago, at the beginning of 2020, I made the decision I don't market in Utah anymore for my coaching services because their bureaucracies are so ridiculous. The largest, Dan knows this, right, Dan? The largest real estate coaching company in the world got shut down. $500 million company got shut down for some of the most stupidest things you've ever heard of in your life, especially if you're in the coaching world. And you know, it's just because of these dumb bureaucracies that make rules that conflict with each other, and you're breaking the law no matter what, right? So Scott doesn't want to deal with that. I don't blame him. To answer your question, Charlotte, yes, it depends on the state. Some are, some are not. Did I answer that question?
Yeah, you did. It's just I'm trying. Obviously, I'm trying to figure out how to use and maximize the assets that I do have to turn around and invest. But I'm also trying to catch up in a sense with these structures that protect my family, protect. You know, it's just me trying to place a priority, you know, things in order of what to do first, and how to go about doing it. What's that?
When it comes to structure, there's nobody better, like higher structure more than just getting one entity. If you're wanting to look at like, okay, you know, here's where I'm wanting to go, and he'll give you like, okay, this is what tomorrow's structure looks like, and this is what structure in 10 years looks like, and here's every step in between. That's awesome. Cody is such an amazing person to talk to about that. So you should have a conversation with him. I mean, I think he's, I want to say $100 for an hour-long consultation, maybe 200. Don't quote me on that.
He also does 10-minute consultations if you just need a quick question.
Oh, and you get a free half-hour consultation if you mention that you're one of my students.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and there's a difference between like commercial and residential. And well, if you have something that's more than 4 doors, isn't that considered to be commercial?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, in pretty much every state that I know of. Dan, correct me if I'm wrong here.
Yeah, I could be wrong too, but yeah, that's why I always quote 4 doors and under is residential and 5+ is commercial.
Yep, it's commercial. Commercial multifamily if it's living space.
Awesome. Thank you.
Questions. I love it. Yeah, I could go on for 2 more hours on these questions, Charlotte. So thank you for the questions. All been awesome questions tonight. Do we have any others? I mean, what are you guys working on? Who's got some stuff that they're facing that they want to chat about?
I have a new thing that came up. It's a mobile home in Florida. So I know the person who's wanting to sell, and I thought, first of all, you know, maybe I'll just put the word out there. But then I started thinking, was I actually may have opportunity to do a 1031 exchange in this regard. But again, I just thought about it today, so I haven't had time to actually go and look and see, you know, is it going to cash flow? But just a little bit that I investigated, it looks like it potentially can. So, you know, I must just figure out, you know, at what range can I get in to make this thing work, and maybe just get a bit more certainty on the rental market. So that may be something that's coming up. But yeah, I may actually reach out to you guys just to sort of pick your brain a little bit, because as I said, there's not too much margin, I think. But again, it's maybe something just to look at. And again, if it's not next, let's move on.
Yeah. You know, couple of things, couple of thoughts come to mind. First off, you have to decide, I talk about in I think multiple classes, where you have to set your own investor ID, which means for flips, what's the minimum amount that you're willing to make, right? You've heard us talk about that as we're going through the quick analysis process. On rentals, what's the minimum cash flow per month that you're willing to make? My number is 400. That's a big number. That's a big number but I do that because most of the rentals that I'm buying are seller financed. In fact, all of them are seller financed, with the exception of maybe 1 or 2. When you're seller financed, this is the second thought, right? So first off, kind of set your baseline. You know, is that $50 a month? I've got a relationship with a guy out of Illinois, Chris Tyson, who guy was a school teacher and decided he wanted to be a real estate investor. And within like the first 5 years, basically bought his entire town, had like 350 doors in this small town in Podunk, Illinois. And he did it all seller financed, right? And his baseline was $50 a month in cash flow. Right now, maybe in the Midwest, like where Jason lives, that might be a more reasonable number. In the Mountain West, where I live, $50 is cutting it close. Right? I want a little more. I want a little more padding than that. And we get out to the coast, East Coast, West Coast. Unless you're like in Florida, but for the most part, the Northeast Coast or the West Coast, you're gonna want like $500 or $600 a month in cash flow, just to make sure that you've got that slush and that you're making a profit that makes the capital expenditure worth it. So that's the first main point. The second point is the reason I focus on seller finance is because it gives me a lot of flexibility with the sellers. So if I'm approaching a seller, there's always something that they've got this hard line on, right? And they can't, most of the time, they can't tell you why. They just have a hard line, darn it, right? And they, like for example, I won't sell my house. I got this the other day. I won't sell my house for less than $244,000, right? That's just, he had that number in his head and that's what he wanted. And I'm looking at this thing, I'm thinking, man, in the current condition, I mean, you and your wife smoke like chimneys. This thing reeks. We'll have to just tear everything out of it, put new stuff back in.
Okay.
I'm sitting at like 160, right? And but I knew from the conversation, and I threw that out, 244, right? That's what I want. And so I went back and I started doing, because it's seller financing, he's my bank.
Sure.
Now here's the advantage in seller financing. I know more than the bank does now, right? Like I'm more knowledgeable than the bank. So I came back to him the next day. I said, okay, 244,000. He's like, what? I'm like, 244,000. But your price, my terms. Here's my terms. 3% interest, and it's going to be a 40-year amortization. So because I added 10 years to the amortization and cut the interest rate way down, it put my payment where I needed it to be for me to get $400 a month. Now, I'm not going to hold this house for 40 years. I'm going to hold it for 5 to 10. I'm going to 1031 into something else, right? Mm-hmm. But that gave me exactly what I needed to make it happen. And dude got his 244,000, right?
And
so
he's happy, yeah.
And he's happy. That's what he wanted. He wanted 244,000. I said, you got it, dude. Absolutely. Okay. So,
That's brilliant.
Yeah. And then sort of what is your motivation, or what is your line that you share with these guys to say, look, okay, obviously they forfeit getting access to cash immediately, but so is it you really play up the fact that, yes, they're not just getting sort of a principal payment, they earning, a pretty nice interest compared to what they can get in the bank today. Is that the line or sort of the story that you go with?
Yeah. So it's going to vary based on the situation of your seller. And so you need to kind of think that through and there's a lot of putting the creative hat on. That's actually the part that I love most about real estate investing is negotiating. And most people are scared of that part, right? But I love it the most because I get to be so creative and influence people and help people at the same time. I mean, Maylee's actually told me before, she's like, you would make an excellent bad guy, right? Because you can get anybody to do anything. But using those powers for good is important. You never want a bad reputation. That'll follow you around. And that's an instant way to get booted out of this industry because it's a small industry. People get to know other people and your name gets spread around. And before you know it, you're being drugged through the mud. I've lasted a decade and I'm going to last another 3 or 4 in this industry because I care about what precedes and proceeds my name, when people talk about me. Now with that said, we want to be helping people, right? So, sure. In some cases, we're negotiating with people who are losing their house to the bank. Well, that's a conversation, right? Okay, so you could turn your house over to the bank, and that's 7 to 10 years of a foreclosure on your credit before you can apply for a mortgage.
Yeah, that's almost a little easier one, as they say. They sort of know financial issues here, other than they just want to get rid of the property type of thing. But no, that's good. Yeah.
So let's talk about somebody who just real quick, just for the benefit of everybody else. Let's talk about somebody who's not in financial issues. They're just, hey, I'm not super motivated. I want to sell my house. And you come in and say, how about seller financing? And they say, no friggin' way. I want cash. Say, okay, I can give you a cash offer, 200,000. No, I need 244. I can give you 244, but it's going to need to be seller financed. Well, no, I don't want seller financing because then you just drag it out and you blah, 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 right? Okay, but let's do some math. So if this is a 40-year note at 3%, and I'm just going to pull numbers out of the air because I don't have an amortization calculator in front of me. If I'm offering you $244,000 in principal at 3% over 40 years, you're going to make $750,000 on this house. And then you just shut up.
Yeah.
Right? And you watch their reaction, and they're like, "What? Yeah, okay, yeah, let's do it. That's great. Seller financing. You know, what about down payment? 20 grand work? Sure, 20 grand works. Let's do this. 750. You know, so you just look for your job in negotiating is to show them their win. That's your job.
Okay, like that.
But you also have to win too.
Sure,
Right?
sure.
So that's the hard part. Because hey, you know what? You want $1 million for your $250,000 house. Here's a win, $1 million, but you don't win, right? You have the art of it is showing them their win while you're still winning. And that's the fun part. That's the part I get addicted to, and that's the part I love. So
well, maybe I could get your guys' thoughts on this. I was able to share a little bit with Dan, but we had somebody reach out about a property here in town, and it was like perfect, like what you were saying before. Like your first one you want to be 5-10 minutes away. In this particular property, it was a house in the front, and you could tell it had been grandfathered in, you know, like deeded in and all this weird stuff. And behind the house was this, the guy that owned it was a construction guy. So he built his offices behind his house, but somebody bought it from him and has had it for the last 20 years and decided to take it, and rather than have offices, they converted into living spaces. And he was asking $350,000 off market, or he would get a real estate agent and sell it at $400,000. He's got all the units in the back totally occupied. It's in a strong community, great school system. So the guy doesn't even have to, he sticks a sign out in the yard and it's a cash cow every month. And so he had said, you know, are you guys interested in it? And then I told you, Mitch, about my CPA buddy that we keep trying to figure out how to, you know, work a deal together. Right. And so he's the one that brought it to me because he does the guy's stuff. So he knows all his numbers. He knows that this guy's bringing in a lot of money. He's like, Jay, you may want to look at this. So we go and we look at it. Long story short, it needs so much work. I mean, he's got renters in there, but it's just goofy. The layout's goofy. It's old. It's worn. It's got, you know, a flat rubber roof on it. I was asking him, you know, I'm playing dumb and, you know, tell me about flat roofs. I don't know anything about them. I know a lot about them. I don't like flat roofs, rubber roofs. But there's this big pool that only his family can use. It's just so bizarre. It's just a bizarre property. But that's the bottom line. $350,000.
After he sells it to you.
What's that?
Is he going to let you use the pool if he sells it to you?
Yes. With all I told him, I said,
it's a negotiation point, right?
No, you're right. It's because it's so odd because you have people living right next to the pool that can't use the pool, but who wants that on their insurance? You know, like, no. So his family lives there, but it's an up and down in the house. And if you knock out the stairs and you have an up unit and a down unit, and then you have 6 units or 4 units in the back, you could be grossing $5,200 a month if you were to rent out the top and the bottom. And the top is big, lots of square footage. The bottom is a 2-bedroom as well. So between the two, you could get 2 for the house, $2K for the house. And behind, you rent everything else out. There's like 2 2-bedrooms and then 1 single bedrooms. Anyways, long story short, we crunched the numbers. We'd be at $5,200 a month, fully rented, but it would need all this work in the house in the front. So I would love to get your thoughts, you, Dan, and you know, the team here, the thoughts on how you would approach something like that. Because I sort of approached it and I don't know if I hit it out of the park.
Yeah.
Well, let me say a couple things, Jason, because at first when Jason told me about the deal, I was like, man, that sounds great, you know. And, you know, Jason's like, yeah, I'm gonna go over there and check it out. And I said, well, man, you know, you get the big emotional $5,200 a month, dollar signs in your eyes, and you're like, that sounds wonderful, you know, and no one else knows about it. This is awesome, you know. But then, you know, I called Jason the next time, and I thought he was gonna say, yeah, I went and saw it, man. This is gonna be great. But instead, he was like, oh, Mr. Downer dude, you know, he's like, well, I'm like, okay, here it comes, you know. And reality is, like Jason's saying, but we need to emphasize a little bit more. Jason's like, this thing is like patched together, and this guy has the little system of he just fixes this little thing and fixes that little thing, and you know, the renters complain about this and that, and he just the king of the patch. He's not into fixing things right. And Jason was kind of like, dude, I can't, that's not part of my real estate plan to take on a property and try and hand it to the property manager. And they're going, dude, this needs a new roof. This needs the new this. You know, you got to at least have something that's a starting point. And by the time Jason factored in all the costs to rehab it to get it right, the numbers were completely different, right? So let me just throw that in there before the discussion goes wild with it.
Yeah, and on a second entry, the first time we went in, we didn't have permission to go into the living quarters of the renters.
Which is normal.
So,
that's normal.
yeah. So he's like, hey, maybe you can come back next week. Yeah, sure, no problem. And of course, I took pictures of his side of the house, but then I couldn't take pictures of these people's units and stuff because I wanted to show my wife too, because she has a lot to do with it. But basically, the living spaces were converted, Kathy, but I don't know if they had all the permits. I'm sure that there was a lot of work done without permits.
So that's
this is how this guy rolled.
One of the things that you want to check in your due diligence, right, in your long analysis process is, was it permitted? Is it zoned? I mean, did this guy just throw up an apartment building without getting, without getting permission from the city? If so, that's called non-conforming. And as soon as you transact that, red flag flies up. And then you're stuck with all these problems and fees, and, they won't let you rent it out. Now you got to reconvert it into single family or get a, and the city already doesn't like you because you bought a non-conforming property and all those things. So that's all part of your due diligence. But a couple of questions for you on that's going to help me recommend an exit strategy for this. First off, is it in a neighborhood where gross and disgusting is acceptable? Is it in the slums? No. Okay, so you're going to have to rehab it. So that kind of pushes us in a direction, right? Is he open to seller financing?
He wants to move to the Keys. He wants to take his money and run.
Wants to cash out. Okay. Even if over 30 years it meant $750,000 to him.
I didn't use that line on him, though.
Give it a shot.
That's a great line.
That may change it, right? As is, without looking at construction or anything, is the cash flow like super sweet? Like, is it like a cherry deal, or is it like pretty good? You're 5,200 in revenue, but your NOI you might be 4,200, and then your mortgage is 3,200, and you're like $1,000 a month for 6 units. That's not great.
Well, when we started really doing the math, we found out that the utilities alone are around $1,000 between all the units. And
he's paying those?
Yeah.
Which means they're not sub-metered, which probably means it's not zoned right.
They're not metered. He said, they're not separated. So you're right. They probably are not zoned.
So that's a runaway, right? If it's not zoned, or it's a project, right? And then you're looking at the city. That's when you set like a 60-day due diligence and you go in and start talking to the city before you buy it. Put it under contract. There's nothing wrong with putting stuff under contract. There's nothing wrong with putting it under contract and working the deal until it doesn't work anymore and then backing it. That's just fine.
That's good.
Just make sure you do it before your earnest money goes hard, right? Okay, so let's pretend like it is zoned. It is zoned correctly, and you're just fine. You can rent it out. That's totally cool. And the cash flow is decent. Here's the thing. It doesn't have to be a buy and hold. I'm fixing and flipping a 13-unit apartment building right now. Like that's, you can fix and flip an apartment building. So go in, drop $100 grand into fixing it up, and turn around and sell it for $550. If it's in a good area, fix it up to the standards of the area, maybe slightly more, just slightly more, right? Fully tenant it at the higher rents. So you're going to come in, you're going to kick all of them out, right? You're going to do a debt equity blend because it's a fix and flip. You're going to fix up the property. You're going to re-tenant it with higher class, way awesome tenants that all get access to the pool, right? And then you put it back on the market and sell it to an investor for $550,000, and you walk away $100,000 richer 12 months later.
That's good too.
And Mitch,
That's if.
Yeah.
Couldn't he use that for leverage too? I mean, if that's not zoned, or if it's got issues and he's saying it's 350 and 4, that's bull on me, because if it's not zoned, it's not worth crap.
Absolutely. Yeah. Everything that's a red flag. In fact, don't we have in one of the classes, don't we have an entire section called real estate red flags?
Yes, we do.
Yes, we do. What class is it in?
It's called real estate red flags.
Wrong education, Tyson.
Oh, sorry.
Let's see. I think it's because this is going to be a good one for you to review, so I want to find it for you. Off-market deals on tap. Pretty sure that's the one. Oh, it kicked me out. Why did it kick me out?
I think that actually may be what you might be referring to, because it does talk about things to look for.
Red flags under fast fix and flip formulas.
Okay, is that the one?
Module 3?
Yeah, I think I talk about it too in, yes. So yes, red flags. And I talk about it in there, but I also talk about it in the, off-market deals on tap, because that's where I go through the system. So when we get to long analysis, I talk about it a lot. So module 8 of the off-market deals on tap as well. So Jason reviewed both of those classes, both of those modules, the red flags from the fix and flip and the long analysis from the off-market deals on tap, because what I talk about in there, red flags they're not run away first when you find a red flag. Red flags are negotiation pieces. And Hannah hit the nail on the head. You're coming back and you're saying, okay, it's got a flat roof. You're not zoned right. You're not metered right. You're not this. You're not that. I got to put 100 grand into fixing it up. You're asking 350. I'm at 200. And here's a cool one that I love doing. Put it under contract. You don't have this problem like we do in the Mountain West, but put it under contract and do a meth test on it. If it comes back positive, there's all the leverage in the world. Those are my favorite. Whenever I find the meth in someone else's house, here's my conversation with them. Okay, so I am morally obligated to report that your building has meth in it. And what's going to happen if I end up doing that is the county's going to come, the county health department is going to come, they're going to quarantine your building, which means they're going to evict all your tenants forcibly. And they're going to placard your building with a big old biohazard sign right on the front. And you can either clean it up or you can list it with that big old biohazard sign. You think you're going to get 350 if you've got a quarantine biohazard building? No, I don't. Okay, I'm still willing to buy it, and I'm going to need a $50,000 discount, so I'm willing to come in at $299, and we can make this happen. So, your choice. What would you like to do?
I love it.
So use that moral obligation, right? Because they can't fight with your morality. But here's the thing, meth, especially if it's below like 100 units per million or whatever it is, it's like for a normal single family house, it usually costs me around $3 grand, but I'm asking for 30 off when I'm having that conversation. Now that's a tough conversation to have, but if you reframe, it can also be a very fun conversation to have. Because this guy thinks he's holding all the cards. Oh, I'm giving you an awesome opportunity. It's off market, and it's not gonna be for very long, right? Until you come in with something like that, right? So
it's cool that you guys say, you know, about $100,000, because I called a buddy of mine that can do the separate metering for us. He's like, yeah, I'm basically $5,000 a unit. You know, I can come in and do a really good job. And then the other guy was like, yeah, that's fair. And so we started, you know, putting all the numbers together, and basically each unit would need 10 to 15K. And to get it to where it's at, the house is in really great shape. They've done work, so it wouldn't take a lot of work by getting rid of the stairs to separate it so that it's, so long story short, we ended up around 100K. So I told Chad, hey, why don't you, you know, just kind of nonchalantly mention, you know, instead of 350, we'd be looking at 250-ish. And so he did backpedal a little bit and was like 250, you know, and then went cold on him 3 days, but then started sending him text on the fourth day saying, you know,
well,
tell me how you got to the,
yeah.
He started, so, but at where we're at currently, he's, you know, he's got his guys over there. They're doing a lot of work right now. So they're trying to fix it up. And so I think we stirred the pot a little bit for him, but these are all great things. Yeah.
The only thing I worry about there is the quality of work they're doing, right? But want to throw an idea at you, because anytime I come into it, I bring up this 13 unit apartment building I'm working on in Ogden, not sub-metered. It was originally a school. I'm buying it as a gym, and I'm turning it into a 13 unit apartment building. It's zoned mixed use, which means residential's okay. So I'm not having to change the zoning. It is obviously not sub-metered because it was a school and then a gym. There's 1 meter, right? So here's what I'm doing. We're going completely electric on everything. Heating, cooling, water heaters, everything's electric. Part of the rehab cost, I'm putting solar in. Paying cash for it. And then I'm charging, separate from the rent, an additional $90 a month per each tenant for their power bill. Another profit center for me. Now, here's the cool thing. You can sell off those power contracts. So you could sell off in 5-10 years. You could sell, it costs you $150,000 to put the solar system in. You could sell off that contract in 3-4 years for $300,000, and they'll just collect that cash flow. They'll buy it from you for $300,000 up front, knowing we're going to make $500,000 off of inflation, and we can keep charging these tenants, right? So now someone else is the power company, and you have $300,000 in your pocket. Right? That's called a PPM, PPA, private power agreement. So make sure it's legal in Ohio, because some states it's not legal in. I had to jump through some hoops in Utah to figure out how to position it so that it would be legal, right? But there's more than one way to skin a cat. You can accomplish the same thing, but that's the first thing I'm going to. If it's not metered, am I going to spend the $5,000 and get nothing back for it by sub-metering this stuff? Or how can I make money? And if I'm going to spend this money, how can I make money on that money I'm spending? So, you know, at, what'd you say, 8 units? How many?
6 total if we chop up the house.
Okay. So we're talking $30,000 just for metering, right? That's a down payment on a major solar system, if not half the cost of it, right? For 6 units. So get a bid on solar. If you end up putting it under contract, get a bid on solar and figure out, you know, hey, can I be the power company? Or even if you plan on selling off that contract, as soon as you finish construction, that's fine too. And get all that money back plus some in a PPA, and let someone else make the cash flow on that, right? Then you're spending your money on something that's actually going to return to you directly versus something spending $30,000 on meters. That's not going to make you a red cent.
Right. Wow,
like
that's a great idea. Yeah.
Internet, coin-op laundry machines. I mean, how many ways in multifamily scenarios can you make money?
He does have a laundromat in there for the units in the back unit. He does quarters and stuff, but he makes good money off of it.
Yeah, spend a little bit extra to upgrade all those coin slots to swipers. Usually if you sign a contract for 2 or 3 years, they'll give you a huge discount on the hardware.
Wow.
Because then what happens with the coin stuff, you get all the bums coming by and breaking into your machines and stealing the quarters. So they can go buy almond joys down the street.
Yeah, we wouldn't. This is a nice area. Like they don't have, but I hear what you're saying. We could charge more. You charge more for the swipes.
Yep.
But
yeah, you can charge more for the swipes.
awesome.
It's safer, right? They don't have any reason to break into your laundry machine if there's no cash in there, right?
Yeah.
So
But
lots
it's
of
called private power agreement.
private power agreement. Yeah, and you can sell those out as long as it's legal in your state. So make sure.
Yeah. Okay.
In Utah, it's not legal to sell a private power agreement. Good old Warren Buffett has a monopoly on our power, and it's actually illegal. So there's a lot of restrictions on solar in Utah, and so just the hoops, like you're looking for the loopholes, right? And through this whole solar process, we're just like, luckily, Maylee has a lot of experience in solar. That's where she got a lot of her sales experience. And so she knew a lot of stuff, kind of gave us a leg up, but we still were like, okay, what if we did it this way? No, what if we did it that way? No, and you're just kind of, until you find a hole, and our hole is we can, as long as we don't sell the contract, we can do it as long as we stay connected to the meter. Now, the reason they do that is because, the reason they say they do that is because it snows in Utah, and snow is going to land on those solar panels. And what do your people do if snow's on your solar panels? Well, Utah wants us to pull off the meter in those cases. So the nice thing is if I overbuild the system slightly, knowing that I'm going just 10% above and beyond what I need, I can sell that extra power back to Rocky Mountain Power and make extra money there as well, which happens automatically. Just shows up as a credit on my statement.
Wow.
When you get to 10, 12,000 bucks, you can call and be like, can I get a refund?
Wow.
Can you apply this to my other accounts, please? That kind of thing.
That's a nice payday. 10 to 12 grand. Wow, that's so rad. I didn't even think of that.
There's some fun stuff to think about. Guys, I had a whole thing planned for you today, but we had some awesome questions instead based on these little guys right here. I built a multi-million-dollar coaching business off of bandit signs and learned how to use them for my real estate business as well, and launched my career using bandit signs. So I promise you that training is going to be coming up, but we are out of time today. We're actually 5 minutes past our cutoff time. So I'm going to let you guys go get back to your families. Thank you so much for joining us today. Did we get a lot of value today? Was this good?
Yep.
Happy campers? Yeah. Good. Good. I'm glad to hear it. I love you all. Please, keep watching your education. Go out there, get dirty a little bit, do some real estate investing, make some offers, put some stuff under contract. It doesn't matter as long as you're staying safe. Dan and I are always here to answer any of your questions. Tyson's here as well to support. So reach out to us if you need anything. And worst case scenario, I'll see you next week. So stay healthy, stay safe. We'll talk to you later.
Cheers.
Bye, everyone.